Before vaping, cigarettes was a thing. Cigarette companies like Craven, Lucky Strike, Philip Morris, Camels, L&M, Viceroys, they all created ads that had celebrities, dentists, doctors talking about how cigarettes were safe and not harmful. But it wasn't till like 20 to 30 years later that all these ads were basically proven wrong. In 2003, 52-year-old pharmacist Han Lick invented the first commercialized e-cigarette. His purpose for this new invention was to be used as a tobacco cessation resource. By 2004, Han Lick introduced the e-cigarette to the Chinese market, and then by 2007, they were introduced to the American markets. Companies like Blue, Green Smoke, Views, and Altria targeted smokers, showing them that e-cigarettes were the new, safer, smooth, and better way to smoke. In 2015, the company Juul was created, and these commercials targeted teens, showing them how cool it was if you vape. Here are a few examples of vaping commercials.
A friend of mine said, "Why wouldn't you just try the Juul?" And so I went out and I bought one. The idea of going back to smoking, I couldn't even imagine doing that. I don't think anyone, including myself, thought that I could switch.
These ads showed e-cigarettes as being a safer alternative to smoking the traditional cigarette. They used celebrities, they used the way it looked to make it seem like it was way better for you and it wasn't as harmful as a traditional cigarette would be. There are some obvious differences between a combustible cigarette and an e-cigarette. The main difference being that an e-cigarette doesn't contain tobacco. Even though these e-cigarettes don't contain tobacco, they still contain nicotine, just like combustible cigarettes do. Nicotine is one of the top most addictive substances in the world. It can almost be as addictive as cocaine and heroin. And not only is it addictive, but it has serious, dangerous effects on the human body. So nicotine produces a pleasing effect in your brain, but these effects only last for a short while time. So every puff you take, you want another puff. Look at it kind of like having a mosquito bite. You itch it one time and it feels good when you itch it, but after you're done itching it, it goes away. So then you want to itch it again. But as you continue to itch it, it grows bigger and bigger. Just like how a nicotine addiction works. You take one puff and you get this sensational feeling, and then you stop and it goes away and you just want to do it again. And then this continues to grow and grow and grow, just like a mosquito bite continues to grow and grow and grow every time you itch at it. Now, not all e-cigarettes have nicotine in them, but a majority of them do, especially the ones that teens and the younger population use. An average cigarette has about 10 to 12 milligrams of nicotine in it, but you don't inhale every milligram of nicotine when you smoke it. So it would be about 1.1 to 1.8 milligrams that you inhale. So an average pack of 20 cigarettes contains about 22 to 36 milligrams of nicotine. A puff bar, on the other hand, can have 20 milligrams to 50 milligrams, depending on the strength of the puff bar, whether it's 2% or 5%. A Juul pod can have about 23 milligrams to 40 milligrams, depending on the strength. Now, a puff bar can have about 200 puffs to 300 puffs. So it could maybe have about 0.5 to 15.4 milligrams per 15 puffs, which is higher than the average cigarette. The lethal dose of nicotine is 50 to 60 milligrams. There is a term that is being coined as nixic, which refers to nonspecific symptoms of exposure to nicotine, especially if it is above someone's tolerance. These symptoms can occur within 15 minutes to an hour, which include nausea, vomiting, stomach ache, loss of appetite, increased heart rate, blood pressure, headache, mouth watering, heavy breathing, dizziness, and anxiety. Within 30 minutes to 4 hours, these symptoms can change to diarrhea, shallow breathing, slower heartbeat and blood pressure, extreme fatigue, weakness, and pale skin. As these symptoms progress, they can go into seizures, respiratory failure, cardiac arrest, breathing difficulties, or even coma. If any of these symptoms progress to this level, it is wise to go to the hospital. To get more info on how public health experts were combating this whole vaping epidemic, I interviewed Lisa Archibald, the manager of a tobacco control program at Vista Clinic. And basically, in this interview, I was able to get her personal opinion on what was pushing vaping to be so popular, and also some strategies that her tobacco control program was working on. So the first thing I asked was, where are some places I can go to look for some reliable resources, because I noticed as I was doing my own research that there were a lot of different sources and they were inconsistent with each other. So I just wanted to get a good answer from a public health official.
If you do see things that are maybe more leaning of, oh, this is a black market thing, this is about marijuana, not tobacco, those are pretty much all pushed from the tobacco and vape industry.
Yeah.
So if you really go to that fine print, it's the people who are selling the vape devices that are saying, oh, no, it's not us, it's someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So really making sure that you're just looking at these credible sources, places like the Surgeon General's report, the FDA, but then you'll hear other things in the media, and those are normally pushed by the industry.
So, like, what would you say is like the biggest contributor for like the youth getting like addicted on vaping or like hooked on it?
The tobacco industry, the tobacco and vaping industry, they have systematically put in millions of dollars to target their product to young people. It's not a coincidence.
Yeah.
They are prying on you and your friends and making this fun, sexy, cool-looking device that's attractive to young people,
mm-hmm.
and tricking people into it being this safe water vapor. It's not.
I know there was like a lot going around, I don't know, not recently, but like before like the COVID virus was like the only thing on the news.
Yeah.
Like a ban on like the flavoring. They were trying to like ban the flavor. Did that like get put through, or like
So it's kind of, I mean, I think there's still a lot of work moving forward with it. There are regulations, very weak regulations that came down from the federal government. I think the vaping industry got to them, sadly. So it's a very weak law. Here in California, there is a bill that is kind of moving through the legislative process that would restrict all flavored tobacco products in California. So that's kind of pending. You know, the state legislature is kind of on hold now, so we'll see what happens with that. What we do at Vista Community Clinic and with our partners kind of here locally is we try to pass these ordinances at a local level. Because if you wait for the state or the federal government, it could take years. But if we know something's really impacting Oceanside, then the city of Oceanside could pass their own law banning the sale of flavored tobacco products. So here in San Diego, I think there's been 2 cities that have passed laws like this: Imperial Beach and Solana Beach. I think that's it. Oh, and the county, the unincorporated county of San Diego. So kind of throughout San Diego and across California, local cities are doing things. I think there's momentum and interest to do these kind of flavor restrictions in more San Diego cities.
I wanted to know from her how dangerous she believed it was for someone who vapes daily to be walking around during a pandemic like this.
Breathing in anything to your lungs other than clean, fresh air is not good for you. If you live in a community with bad air quality, if you smoke cigarettes, or if you took the grass on your front yard and started smoking that, you're going to be putting in things into your lungs that are damaging to them. And I know when it comes to your lungs, the damage that is caused by smoking or poor air quality or breathing in toxins, it can't regenerate healthy tissue like you can with your heart, with different parts of your thing. So once you damage those part of your lung, it can't be fixed. So in theory, you would think, oh, well, if you have a suppressed lung capacity and system, it's going to be harder for you to fight any respiratory kinds of conditions.
You think that the reason why it's so hard to like pinpoint vaping as dangerous is like because there's not enough information out there about it. So like that's why people don't really like see vaping as dangerous as smoking a cigarette.
Yeah, I think when it comes to smoking cigarettes, the consequences of that you don't see until you're like 60 years old,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're a young person, you start smoking, you're not going to get lung cancer at 20.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get lung cancer when you're 60. It takes years to see the consequences of it. You'll probably have shortness of breath and maybe a bad cough, but it takes a lot of time to really see those consequences and to see them in a real deadly format. So when it comes to vaping, because it's so new, we don't have people who've been vaping for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have people that, when it comes to smoking, you die later in life.
Yeah.
Very few people die right away. So it's going to we just need time. And why risk it? What if it's worse than smoking?
Yeah, I know. I've read a lot of like things on like how it can be bad for the brain, it can be bad for like just like a lot of different systems in your body. But but that's not like really known to the public on like the health aspects.
Yeah. And like when you vape, it's not harsh like a cigarette. It's not, like it feels smooth, it tastes good. So if it doesn't feel like it's harming you,
yeah, it's not.
You think it doesn't.
Exactly.
And then there's also, when you're vaping a product that has like nicotine in it or marijuana, any kind of drug like that is going to hinder brain development.
Mm-hmm. Especially
our brains don't stop growing until you're 25. So why put anything into your system that's going to make it less likely to reach full capacity?
The last part of the interview is a voiceover because my Wi-Fi connection was bad, so we had to do the rest of the interview over the phone. And the last few questions are just basically on public policy and what she thinks about the tobacco companies.
Marketing. You place it everywhere, you promote it, and you have the price being cheap. So we use the reverse of that to make it harder to get a product. So we want to increase the price. We don't want to promote it, so anti, advertising, and we want to restrict the number of places that you can get it.
That's okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of the angle that we go about in public health and tobacco control, is these long-term strategies to really change the environment that people live in. At the same time, we want to educate people about, why this is bad, and talking to parents and schools about it. But you probably know than anyone, we can say, or an adult can tell a young person, hey, don't do this, but how often does that work?
They just want to do the opposite.
They want to do the opposite, or it's not going to happen to me, or, I'm going to die anyways. There's all these kind of strategies because you're young. You're not thinking about your life in 50 years from now. So, although that works for some people, it's a piece of the solution, but just telling people not to do it or it's going to kill you hasn't been successful in the past.
Yeah. That's how it was with cigarettes back then. People still do it.
Or even now.
Yeah.
The evidence is out there. Smoking's bad for you. But
people still do
unless you have been smoking for 20, 40 years and now you're having a hard time, with it, or, sadly, a loved one or family member, you've seen them die from it, even then, this is an addictive product that is everywhere and acceptable, and so people keep doing it.
Yeah. I, tried, from part of my project, I wanted to do, a survey just to, that was, mainly centered towards, teens. So, I wanted to see their opinion on, certain things, and, I asked them, the last question I asked them was, do you consider yourself addicted? And 79% out of 20% of them said no, that they weren't, that they could quit tomorrow. But what was funny about that was that 52% of them did it every day.
Yeah.
So it's like they don't really like, they're kind of inconsistent with each other, but they still don't see themselves as being addicted.
Yeah. And some of them could be addicted, and some of them couldn't. Some of them, it maybe is just a part of their norm, and they could quit. They just don't want to, or their friends do it. And the other half of them are, and then another portion of them are addicted to it, and maybe they don't want to admit it, or they've never tried to quit, so they don't know that they're addicted to it, right?
Yeah. An expert on like just like publicizing it and like getting people to stop like trying
Yeah,
to.
so we work more on like a public health kind of awareness and policy angle.
Yeah.
But we work with, researchers and doctors who kind of have that expertise.
Yeah. Have you ever like talked to like researchers or doctors about like the benefits of it? Because I'm not someone who's like for it, but like, have they ever said any benefits for vaping?
No.
No.
I would say that any kind of healthcare professional that I've worked with doesn't want anyone that they know or treat use any kind of vape products. So safer isn't safe.
Yeah.
Is kind of the overall message. There are some folks out there that think it may not be as bad as cigarettes, traditional cigarettes. But we don't really know that because we don't know the long-term consequences of it. It's a theory. We know that combustible cigarettes are very dangerous for you. They cause tons of health problems. So we want people to stop smoking cigarettes. We don't want them switching to a vaping product. We want them to just stop altogether. And kind of the CDC and the Surgeon General and the top health officials say, if you use a vaping product to quit cigarettes, your next step is to quit the vaping product.
Yeah.
So you might use it as a step down approach, but you still need to be working towards being, free.
So you would say for those people who like, they're probably the older population, because I know there's young people who smoke cigarettes, but those who are like trying to quit, the best way for them to do is like doing like just quitting smoking in general and trying something like that isn't smoking anything at all.
Yeah, or using a medication that has been approved and is safe.
Okay.
That's gone through, rigorous clinical trials and testing, and it's not going to hurt you.
Okay. So, like, one last question. So, if you had, like, the chance to, like, advise teens about, like, the dangers of vaping, like, what would be the one thing you would say?
I think the biggest thing is that the tobacco and vaping industry is purposely targeting young people. And the millions of dollars that they're using to manipulate you is why this epidemic of vaping is happening. And it's not your fault. You don't know that it's happening to you. But it was a very strategic campaign. And no one wants to be manipulated and controlled over. And now you're addicted, and it's a part of your community, right? It's a part of being a young person now. And kind of, there's like someone to blame for it. I kind of see it. I really see it as the industry is the enemy here. I think they addicted a generation of people, and it's not your fault. And I would never blame someone who smokes or vapes. There's nothing wrong with you. Something bad about doing that. It's just something that you're going through, and we want you to quit, and we want to provide you support and health, and it's like no judgment.
What I gained from this interview and my research is that most likely vaping will continue to grow. As long as tobacco and e-cigarette companies are around to promote and advertise for their products, people will continue to be influenced to keep vaping. With vaping still being a relatively new thing, it may take researchers 10 to 20 years to narrow down the long-term health effects. Even though there have been studies that have shown toxins such as formaldehyde, which is a carcinogen, in the vaping products, there still needs to be more research conducted to scientifically prove vaping is dangerous. The best way to help someone who is struggling with a vaping addiction is for you to educate them and yourself on vaping. The more you know about vaping, the less effect it can have on you. You aren't alone, and you can stop. Don't do it. All you
will gain
from vaping
is an addiction.